Hey, what is going on, guys? My name is ThePromG. Welcome back to a brand new video. Now today, I'm going to be talking about manga series that I have dropped. Now, I would say that for the most part, I've enjoyed every single manga series that I've ever read, obviously to varying degrees. But as is typical with basically any kind of media that you choose to consume, there are going to be some things thrown into the mix that you just don't quite enjoy as much and don't really feel like continuing. In today's video, I'm going to be going over 8 manga series that I ended up dropping for one reason or another. We're going to get to all of them and explain why I just didn't feel like continuing any of these manga series. I decided to create this video after watching HBO Manga's take on this situation, so of course I recommend you guys watch that video. I'll link it in the description below. Very good video, and just like she had some controversial takes in her video, I'm sure that some of the drop manga series I'm going to be talking about today will ruffle a few feathers to say the least. But if you guys do enjoy this video, then make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more manga videos just like this. Also, if you're shopping on Rice Stuff, then make sure to use my affiliate link, which will be linked down in the description below. You get manga for amazing prices. You also help support the channel. But with all of that out of the way, without any further ado, let's get right into the video. Alright, so the first manga series that I've dropped that I'm going to be talking about in this video is a very popular series, but also a very polarizing series. And the series that I'm talking about is, of course, Bleach. Now, if you guys have been following the channel for several months, you know that last year I actually was reading Bleach and really enjoying it. And I can say with confidence that I really did enjoy everything that I read from Bleach. I read volumes 1 through 48, which is the end of the second box set. I thought that the Rancor arc was pretty solid and enjoyable, had some great characters, great fights, and honestly, the Soul Society arc is a top contender for my favorite shonen arc of all time. So if you don't know a whole lot about the Bleach manga, you may be asking yourself, ThePromG, why on earth did you ever drop Bleach if you were enjoying it so much? And the answer is because a lot of people told me to for my own sanity. It's no secret that the final few arcs of the Bleach manga are highly controversial, whether it be the Fullbring arc, the 1000-Year Blood War arc, which some people say is really good and worth reading this later part of Bleach. But I've just heard so many bad things about how the quality declines as Kubo was forced to keep putting out this series against his own will. Honestly, though it is pretty bittersweet, I think that the ending of the Rancor arc, volume 48, is a decent ending. Again, it is pretty bittersweet, but I think that all in all, it kind of wraps up the story, and I don't have a whole lot of questions as to what happens next after that point. Maybe if I find the third box set for like an absolute steal somewhere used, then I'll pick it up and read it so I can have my own opinions, but it's not really a huge priority, and for the moment, Bleach is going to stay on my dropped manga list. Next manga series that I ended up dropping is actually a pretty short series, and one that I thought would be a super fun read, but in reality, I just found it not to really be up my alley. The manga that I'm talking about is High School of the Dead. Now, yes, I know you're thinking, ThePromG, you are a degenerate for even picking up this series and thinking about reading it, but I want you guys to hear me out. At the time that I picked up a complete set of High School of the Dead, I was reading a lot of really dark and kind of depressing series such as, you know, Goodnight Punpun and I believe Battle Royale at the time. So I decided to shake it up a little bit and pick up a series that would be just dumb fun, nothing to take too seriously, that I could just kind of turn my brain off and enjoy. But after I got through the first few volumes, I realized that this series was just a little bit too brain dead, even for my pea-sized brain to enjoy. I think that all this manga really had going for it was a cool concept that we've surely all put ourselves in the situation of having some sort of apocalypse at school and being the protagonist. And of course, I cannot fault the series for some very quality fan service and amazing artwork. You know, that was probably what I enjoyed the most from the series. But as I was reading, I just started to feel like nothing was really happening in the story. It was kind of slow paced. I didn't really find any of the characters all too interesting other than their character designs. And to top it all off, this manga actually never had an official ending because the mangaka sadly passed away before he could finish it. And while I don't think a manga being incomplete, whether it be a series like Vagabond or Berserk, I don't think that's a reason not to check it out, but when you're just not really enjoying it at all, there's not really a reason to keep reading, in my opinion. So while I can indeed understand why some people might really enjoy this series, it just wasn't for me, and that's why I dropped it. And for the next series I ended up dropping, we have another hot take. Yes, indeed, the next manga that ended up dropping was Ajin Demihuman. Now, before all you Ajin stans mass report and get all Twitter fingers on this video, I just want to say a couple things in my defense. Number one, from what I read, overall, I enjoyed this manga. Number two, this manga has some really great qualities, such as the great artwork, the fast pacing, and honestly, one of my favorite manga antagonists from any series I've ever read, obviously that being Sato. But goddamn if this series does not have one of the worst main protagonists that I've ever had the displeasure of looking at on the printed page. I really don't even remember his name. I'll put a picture of him up on screen. This little fucker right here. I absolutely hated this character. He was so unlikable, wasn't really interesting at all, just bitched the entire time. And not even like early My Hero Academia Deku bitching, he's just such a downer all the time, and it's just really not enjoyable to read what he has to say. From what I read of the first 10 volumes of Ajin, I think that it's a good manga series and one that I would recommend. In my opinion, Ajin is heavily carried by the main antagonist, as well as the brilliant artwork and pacing. Ultimately, I just really didn't ever see myself going back to this series, so I decided that if I ever want to read it again, I'll read it online, and I just ended up selling off the 10 volumes that I had. But ladies and gentlemen, the controversial takes do not stop there, I assure you. Next up, we have possibly an even more controversial take about a manga series I have dropped, and that of course is Golden Kamuy. Often regarded as one of the best and most essential modern seinen manga series, I really thought that I would enjoy Golden Kamuy more than I did. And on a similar note with Ajin, there are some things that I really did enjoy about Golden Kamuy, such as the artwork, the action, and a couple of the characters. But what really killed this series for me was the terrible pacing, and I thought it was really bad for a couple of reasons. The first reason is that from the 5 volumes that I read from this series, the setting hardly ever changes. It feels like they're just wandering through this barren forest in winter for the entirety of what I've read. Of course, there are a few times when the setting changes, and honestly, some of the parts where it's in this barren winter forest are enjoyable, such as the part with the bear, if you know what I'm talking about. But overall, I think that the setting just got really old really fast. And the second thing, in my opinion, that really killed the pacing of this manga is just how much stuff they try to cram into this one series. Oftentimes, this is a reason why people will say that you should read Golden Kamuy, and a reason why it's so great. You know, it has it all. It has history, cooking, comedy, action, the list goes on and on. But what they really mean by that is that something interesting will be going on, and then they'll interject some paragraphs about history and a recipe that you don't really care about, and recycle the same poop joke 20 times. In my personal opinion, Golden Kamuy is not a bad series, but it's also not a great series like everybody says it is. At least from what I've read so far, the pacing really killed this manga for me. It had so much going for it, and you really think that I would enjoy it, but that's just not how it ended up turning out. Next up, we have a manga series that I actually really did enjoy, and that is Spice and Wolf. Now, I really don't have any bad things to say about the Spice and Wolf manga. In fact, I really only have good things and good memories of when I was reading this series. I believe I got through the first 6 volumes. And while I haven't really heard any other people say any negative things about the manga in particular, I've heard people say that the light novel is just the best way to experience the series, so that's what I plan on doing sometime in the future. Now, even though I sold all my Spice and Wolf manga like a year ago, and I still do not have any volumes of the light novel, I promise I'm gonna get to it eventually, just not right now. The next manga series that I dropped is a somewhat obscure Dark Horse series that is becoming very, very expensive, which kind of contributes to the reason that I dropped it. Of course, I'm talking about MPD Psycho. MPD Psycho is basically if Criminal Minds, the TV show, had a manga series with a protagonist who suffered from multiple personality disorder, or whatever the proper term for the disease is now. And again, this is a series that I did enjoy what I read of. I believe I read the first 6 volumes of this series. The artwork, though a little bit simple, is pretty clean and pleasing to look at. Also, there's just some batshit crazy stuff that goes on in the story, which, you know, I'm all here for. But the 2 main reasons that I ended up dropping the series is because 1, I found all of the different personalities and identities of the main character just way too hard to keep a track of. The second reason is that picking up the volumes after what I already owned would have probably cost me an arm and a leg. Even though I'm obviously no stranger to pursuing rare and out-of-print manga series, regardless of the cost in some cases, obviously the probability that I'm going to continue picking up a rare and expensive series is going to highly depend on how much I actually like it. I really enjoyed expensive series such as Gantz and Battle Angel Alita, therefore I thought that it was justified for me to pick up these volumes. And even though I did enjoy what I read of MPD Psycho, I just didn't really enjoy it enough to justify the insane price tag of some of these later volumes. Now, coming in at number 7, we have a very interesting manga, because this one is probably the worst manga series that I've ever subjected myself to. You may be thinking to yourself, he's talking about Girl on the Shore, 7 Billion Needles, you know, some of these series he's talked about in the past. No, the series I'm talking about is Appleseed. Even though Appleseed has, I think, a somewhat popular anime adaptation, it would not surprise me in the slightest if you've never even heard of the series. Basically, I was looking for a new sci-fi series to read. I came across these volumes of Appleseed, which are pretty rare, for a good price on eBay, and the art actually looked like one of my favorite series, Eden Its Endless World. So I ended up picking up this series, hoping that I would enjoy it, but what I did not know is that I was about to subject myself to one of the most soul-sucking manga experiences that I've ever experienced. The characters, while not absolutely awful, are not good either. They have this relationship that I feel like the manga wants you to immediately be invested in, whereas it's quite the opposite. The story is tremendously lifeless and is void of basically anything interesting at all. It kind of feels like if Akira and RoboCop had a bastard son and it came out looking like this. This manga series is only 4 volumes long. I made it through 2 and just could not put myself through it any longer, even for the sake of just checking it as completed on my anime list. It was not worth it. I had to sell the series immediately. I'm so glad that I don't own these volumes anymore because this series just sucked the absolute life out of me when I was trying to read it. I guess just let this serve as a warning. Take it from me, if you ever find yourself tempted to start this series, The Forbidden Fruit, then just think back on the things that I've told you, the knowledge that I've given you for free in this YouTube video, and keep that at heart before you decide to dive into this horrible series. But anyways, the final manga series that I have for this video that I've dropped is another series that I did actually enjoy a decent amount. Admittedly, this series is a little bit out of character for what I usually enjoy, but the series I'm talking about is How Not to Summon a Demon Lord. How Not to Summon a Demon Lord is basically your typical run-of-the-mill isekai series, again with some pretty decent fan service here and there, again furthering the point that this is basically your run-of-the-mill isekai series. And while I thought that the plot of the series was decently interesting, it was nothing absolutely mind-blowing or even I would call great. I would say that the story of this manga was good from what I've read. I enjoyed it every single time I picked up a volume, but therein lies the problem actually picking up these volumes. Time that I was picking up this series, I did not know about Right Stuff or other manga retailers online. So basically, if I wanted to buy manga, I went to either Barnes & Noble or Amazon. And as I was wanting to pick up the 4th volume of this series, the next volume that I had to read, I was faced with a very tough decision. Do I A, want to take this volume up to the cashier at Barnes & Noble, or B, do I want my mom to see that I've ordered this off of her Amazon account? Faced with this terrible dilemma, I decided that it just wasn't worth continuing this series. One, because I didn't think it was even that great to begin with, and B, it just was not worth it having my mom know that I was reading a series like this. Mom, if you're watching this video, I'm sorry, I've repented, I've gone to church and sold this series, so you have nothing to hold against me now. But anyways guys, that is my manga that I've dropped list. Of course, not all of these series that I've ever dropped, but rather a select few that I want to talk about in this video, give my defense as to why I dropped these series. Of course, some pretty controversial takes, in my opinion, that I talk about in this video. Of course, these are all just my opinions and not objectively proven in fact. So again, don't take these too much to heart, but all in all, I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you guys did, then make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more manga videos just like this. So yeah, this has been ThePromG. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and as always, hope to catch you in the next one.